Morning. It's a beautiful day out today, isn't it? Just sun is shining, birds are singing, flowers are beginning to come up, and even the plants, the trees are beginning to bud. A beautiful day, and it's perfect. But as you and I know, not everything is always perfect all the time. There are those times in our lives where things maybe go sideways. Things don't go as we had planned. Life, while it may look nice, doesn't always go that way. We've been talking about Daniel over the past couple of weeks, and if you remember in Daniel and his friends were taken captive by the Babylonians, and they were brought to Babylon. They had everything changed. They lost everything. And here they are trying to live the way that they know was right in a culture that didn't even know God. In Daniel chapter 3, we read about another incredible story. This is the story not necessarily of Daniel, but of his three friends, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And in this story, in Daniel chapter 3, King Nebuchadnezzar decides that he wants to build a huge statue of gold. And then this statue is his image. And the ruling was that when the music began to play in the kingdom, everyone was supposed to bow down and worship the statue of King Nebuchadnezzar. But of course, in the story here, we see that Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they wouldn't bow down and they wouldn't worship. Well, in the story, as King Nebuchadnezzar finds out, they didn't bow, and he gets really, really angry. And what's interesting is in this moment, we see excellence in exile. In Daniel 3, it says in verse 16 that Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego went before the king, and the king tells them, if you guys don't bow down the next time, then I'm going to have you thrown into a fiery furnace. And I love their response. Their response is simply this. They say, O Nebuchadnezzar, we do not need to defend ourselves before you in this matter. If we are thrown into the blazing furnace, the God we serve is able to save us from it, and he will rescue us from your hand, O king. But even if he does not, we want you to know, O king, that we will not serve your gods or worship the image of gold you have set up. They had determined in their heart that they would not worship anything other than God. But there's two things that we see that is important in this moment. They weren't just being belligerent. There was a purpose behind this. And the way in which that they went about it was incredible. Excellence in exile requires these two things. The first thing was that they put their full trust in God. I love how they say it. They put it in these words. They say, our God can save us, and he will deliver us from your hand. They trusted God explicitly. But the other part of this was, it was all about God to them. It wasn't about them. It wasn't about their rights. It wasn't about their abilities. It wasn't about what they wanted. It was all about glorifying the God in which they served. We find ourselves in times where sometimes we feel that maybe the freedoms that we should have, we're not getting. But here's the reality of the moment that we live in. God is still in control. We can trust him explicitly in these days. And secondly, we can still glorify our God because he is God above all gods. We can live with excellence in exile for him.